Have you ever looked at your to-do list, knowing exactly what you need to do, but you just can't bring yourself to start? It's a weird feeling, right? We're surrounded by endless opportunities and tools to learn, to grow, to get ahead. And yet, so often, the motivation just isn't there. Even things we used to enjoy can start to feel like a total drag. Well, today we're going to dig into why that happens, why the most important work can feel so incredibly boring. Let's get right into it.
So, let me kick things off with a pretty wild story. It's about a celebrity who was seriously overweight. And his problem wasn't just that he loved junk food, it was that healthy food, to him, had zero taste. It was just bland. The thought of eating salads and grilled chicken for the rest of his life felt like a prison sentence. He was actually about to go for weight loss surgery, but then his doctor suggested one last kind of crazy idea. The doctor's challenge was intense. For 2 solid weeks, he was to eat nothing but plain boiled potatoes. That's it. No butter, no seasoning, not even a sprinkle of salt. Now, the point here wasn't really about losing weight, though that happened too. The real goal was something way more profound. So he did it. And after 2 miserable weeks on nothing but potatoes, the first real food he ate was a simple piece of boiled corn. And you know what he said? He said it tasted like candy. It was this huge light bulb moment for him. He realized his taste buds had been so bombarded by sugar and artificial flavors that he'd completely lost the ability to appreciate natural sweetness. This whole experiment basically reset his palate, and for the first time he could actually enjoy healthy food and lose the weight for good. Now, hang on to that story, because it's the key to everything we're talking about today.
So what on earth happened there? How did a potato diet rewire his sense of taste? And more importantly, what does this have to do with our own motivation? Well, to connect the dots, we've got to look at one of the most famous chemicals in our brain. You've definitely heard of it, dopamine.
Okay, so first things first, let's clear up a huge misconception. A lot of people call dopamine the pleasure hormone, the thing that makes you feel good after you get something, but that's not really its main job. Think of dopamine as the chemical of desire. It's the go-get-it chemical. It's released before you get the reward, in anticipation of it, and that's what drives you to actually take action. When you're thirsty, it's the kick of dopamine that makes you want to get up and grab a glass of water.
And here's the kicker. The amount of dopamine our brain releases is all about speed and effort. On one hand, you've got things like scrolling social media, playing video games, or eating junk food. They give you a huge instant dopamine hit for basically zero effort. But on the other hand, you have the important stuff, studying, working out, building a career. The reward for those things is way off in the future, and it takes a ton of effort to get there. So naturally, they release a lot less dopamine, which makes our brains way less interested in them.
Okay, so our brain loves these fast, easy rewards. What's the harm in that? Well, this is where we walk right into something I call the tolerance trap. It all comes down to your brain's deep, deep need for balance. Let's unpack this. You know how your body is always trying to keep things stable, right? It's a process called homeostasis. If you get cold, you shiver to warm up. If you get hot, you sweat to cool down. It's automatic. Well, guess what? Your brain does the exact same thing with its chemistry. When it's constantly being flooded with these massive, unnatural hits of dopamine, it sees that as a problem, an imbalance, and it immediately starts working to bring things back down to normal.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. To bring things back into balance, your brain starts to protect itself. It actually reduces the number of dopamine receptors available. It's a process called downregulation. It's literally the same mechanism as drug addiction. The addict needs a bigger and bigger dose just to feel the same effect. And in the same way, we start needing more and more stimulation just to feel, well, anything.
This whole process has 2 really damaging consequences. First, the things that used to be fun just don't do it for you anymore. One episode of a show isn't enough, now you need to binge the whole season. And second, and this is the really crucial part, your whole baseline for motivation just tanks. Those important low dopamine activities like reading or exercising, they now feel completely and utterly boring. The small, natural reward they offer just isn't enough to get your desensitized brain to even care.
So that sounds a little bleak, doesn't it? But here's the good news. If the problem is that our brains have become numb and desensitized, then the solution is actually pretty straightforward. We just have to give them a chance to reset themselves.
This is where you might have heard the term dopamine fasting. Now, the name is a little misleading. You can't actually stop your brain from producing dopamine, but the idea behind it is spot on. It's about intentionally taking a break from all those cheap, easy, high-stimulation activities. The whole point is to let your dopamine receptors heal and become sensitive again.
And suddenly, we're right back to that crazy potato diet. A dopamine fast is exactly that,
But for your mind, you're taking away all the artificial, high-intensity junk that's been overwhelming your system. And when you do that, your brain can finally start to appreciate the subtle, natural rewards that come from doing simple, meaningful things again. Just like that celebrity got his taste for real food back, you can get your motivation for real work back.
All right, so the theory makes sense, but what does this actually look like in real life? How do we do it? Let's walk through a super simple, totally actionable plan that you can try.
The idea is to pick just one day a week for your reset. And on that day, you're going to avoid all the usual suspects. So that means no scrolling on your phone, unless you absolutely need to make a call. No social media. No Netflix, no YouTube, no podcasts. No video games, no junk food, no sweets, and try not to snack between meals. And look, it kind of goes without saying, but things like drugs or porn, those aren't things you stop for just one day. The goal is to cut those out for good.
So when you cut all of that stuff out, you are going to feel one thing very, very strongly. Boredom. You will be bored. But here's the secret. That's the whole point. Boredom isn't the enemy here. It's actually the first step toward the solution. Instead of running from it, the goal is to just sit with it.
Because something amazing happens after that first wave of boredom hits. Your brain, desperate for something to do, will start looking for stimulation. And that's when you can direct its attention to all those important things you've been putting off. Use the day to finally tackle that project. Pick up a real physical book. Go for a long walk. Meditate. Pray. Just be quiet for a bit. Plan your week ahead. Clean your room. You're turning a day of doing nothing into a day of doing what actually matters.
So what about the other 6 days of the week? Well, the name of the game is structure. First, just try to be mindful and use those high dopamine activities in moderation. But here's a real pro tip. Delay your gratification. Make a simple rule for yourself. You do the hard work first, and then you get to enjoy the fun stuff. This basically turns your entertainment into a reward, which actually uses dopamine to your advantage, motivating you to get the important things done.
At the end of the day, this whole thing isn't really about being more productive. It's about taking back control. It's about making sure that your precious time and energy are being spent on things that you genuinely value, not just on distractions that leave you feeling numb and empty. And that choice, well, it's a choice we all have to make every single day. So the real question is, what's one small thing you can do, even today, to start this reset? Thanks for tuning in.